Illuminated Bible Story Book for Young People by Elizabeth Morton. Printed in the U.S.A., copyright 1927, published by the John C. Winston Company, Chicago, Philadelphia, Toronto. Includes 20 colored illustrations. Today's reading is The Shepherd Boy and the Giant. In the days when Saul was king over Israel, there lived in Bethlehem a shepherd boy whose name was David. He was the youngest of 7 sons and was very strong and brave. As a shepherd boy, he lived much out of doors, and he learned to love the trees and the flowers. He was not afraid of the wild beasts, and once when a lion came to steal a lamb, David caught him and killed him. When David was a boy, the Philistine army came into the Israelites' land, and pitching their tents on a mountainside, made ready to fight the children of Israel. The Israelites made their camp on another hill, and there was a valley between. In the army of Israel were the 3 older brothers of David, and one day David's father sent him from Bethlehem to visit his brothers in camp. "Take this corn and these 10 loaves of bread to them," he said, "and these 10 cheeses as a present to the captain." Early the next morning, David started out on his errand to the camp of Israel, leaving his flocks of sheep in the care of a keeper. When he reached the camp, he saw the army of King Saul on one hill and the army of the Philistines on the opposite hill, all ready for battle. Can you not imagine how excited he must have been, and how quickly he must have run to find his brothers? While he was talking to them, he saw a great giant come striding out in front of the camp of the enemy. This giant, whose name was Goliath, was nearly twice as tall as any man he had ever seen, and almost all of his body was covered with brass, so that no sword could touch him. On his head he wore a helmet of brass, and by his side walked a man carrying an enormous spear and a huge brass shield. The giant stood in front of the camp and shouted out, "I defy the army of Israel! Send out a man who will fight with me." Not one man of the army of Israel felt strong enough or brave enough to go out and fight with this giant. But as David listened to this boasting fellow, he cried out, "Who is this wicked man? And why does not someone go out and kill him? If no one else will go, then I shall go out and fight him." The older brother of David was much displeased when he heard David talking in this manner, and he scolded him for leaving his sheep to come to see a battle. But some of the soldiers had told King Saul about the shepherd lad and of his eagerness to kill the giant, so the king sent for him. When they brought David before Saul, the king said to him, "You are but a boy. You cannot fight this giant. How is it that you dare to think of fighting with a man of war like Goliath?" Then David told King Saul that God had made him strong enough to kill the lion and the other wild animals that had come to steal his sheep. And surely God would in like manner give him strength enough to kill the giant. Saul was then ready to let David fight Goliath, and he put his own armor on the boy and gave him a sword. But the armor was too large for David, and he would not use it. "Let me fight in my own way," he said, and he went forth just as he was, in his shepherd's clothes, with his staff and his bag over his shoulder. All he did was to run down to the brook nearby and choose 5 smooth stones. These he put into his shepherd's bag. Then he took his sling. Most boys today know that a sling is a long strip of leather. With this sling and 5 smooth pebbles, he went out to meet Goliath. When the giant saw the boy, he was surprised and angry and laughed at him. "Am I a dog," he shouted, "that you come to fight me with that staff? I shall soon tear you to pieces, and I shall give your flesh to the birds and to the beasts of the fields." But David was not afraid. He shouted back to the giant, "You come to me with a sword and a spear and a shield, but I come to you in the name of the Lord, Today the Lord will give you into my hands, and I shall smite you, and all the earth will know that there is a God in Israel." Then David ran boldly toward the giant, and picking out a stone from his bag, he put it into his sling and hurled it fiercely at Goliath. His aim was so true that the stone stuck the very middle of Goliath's forehead, and the giant fell down with his face to the earth. David ran forward, took the giant's own sword from its sheath, and cut off his head. When the Philistines saw that their leader was dead, they did not even wait to gather their goods together, but ran as fast as they could toward their own land. How Saul's army shouted for joy, and what rejoicing there was that day, for David had won a great victory and had saved his people from their enemies.